Shall we dance? How did you come to marry him? Now, how could you tell someone that? How he lowered his head in a self-deprecating way, and raised his eyes to look up at you coyly, the way a baby does. How he wormed his way into your heart, sweet, adoring, playful. He said, "You're so strong, honey." And I believed it. I believed it. Marilyn French, The Bleeding Heart. How do women who love too much find the men with whom they can continue the unhealthy patterns of relating that they developed in childhood? How, for instance, does the woman whose father was never emotionally present find a man whose attention she continually strives for but cannot win? How does the woman from a violent home manage to team up with a man who batters her? How does the woman raised in an alcoholic home find a man who already has or will soon develop the disease of alcoholism? How does the woman whose mother always depended on her emotionally find a husband who needs her to take care of him? Out of all the possible partners they encounter, what are the cues that lead these women to the men with whom they can perform the dance they know so well from childhood? And how do they respond or not respond when they encounter a man whose behavior is healthier and less needy or immature or abusive than what they are accustomed to, whose dance does not fit so smoothly with theirs? It is an old cliché in the field of therapy that people often marry someone just like the mother or father with whom they struggled while growing up. This concept is not quite accurate. It is not so much that the mate we choose is just like mom or dad, but that with this partner we are able to feel the same feelings and face the same challenges that we encountered growing up. We are able to replicate the atmosphere of childhood already so well known to us, and use the same maneuvers in which we are already so practiced. This is what, for most of us, constitutes love. We feel at home, comfortable, exquisitely right with the person with whom we can make all our familiar moves and feel all our familiar feelings, even if the moves have never worked and the feelings are uncomfortable. They are what we know best. We feel that special sense of belonging with the man who allows us, as his partner, to dance the steps we already know. It is with him that we decide to try to make a relationship work. There is no more compelling chemistry than this feeling of mysterious familiarity when a woman and a man come together whose patterns of behavior fit like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. If, added to this, the man offers the woman an opportunity to grapple with and try to prevail over childhood feelings of pain and helplessness, of being unloved and unwanted, then the attraction becomes for her virtually irresistible. In fact, the more pain from childhood, the more powerful the drive to reenact and master that pain in adulthood. Let's look at why this is true. If a young child has experienced a trauma of some kind, it will appear and reappear as a theme in his or her play activities until there is some sense of having finally mastered the experience. A child who undergoes surgery, for example, may reenact the trip to the hospital. Using dolls or other toy figures, may make himself the doctor in one such drama and the patient in another, until the fear attached to the event is sufficiently diminished. As women who love too much, we are doing much the same thing, reenacting and re-experiencing unhappy relationships in an attempt to make them manageable, to master them. It follows that there really are no coincidences in relationship, no accidents. In marriage, when a woman believes that she inexplicably had to get married to a certain man, one she would never have deliberately chosen for her husband, for instance, it is imperative that she examine why she chose to be intimate with that particular man, why she ran the risk of pregnancy with him at all. Likewise, when a woman claims that she married on whim, or that she was too young to know what she was doing, or that she wasn't fully herself and could not make a responsible choice, these are also excuses that merit deeper examination. Actually, she did choose, albeit unconsciously, and often with a wealth of knowledge about her future partner even at the outset. To deny this is to deny responsibility for our choices and our lives, and such denial precludes recovery. But how do we do it? What exactly is the mysterious process, the indefinable chemistry that is sparked between a woman who loves too much and the man to whom she's drawn? If the question is restated in other ways, what signals flash between a woman who needs to be needed and a man who is looking for someone to take responsibility for him? Or between a woman who is extremely self-sacrificing and a man who is extremely selfish? Or between a woman who defines herself as a victim and a man whose identity is based on power and aggression? Or a woman who needs to control and a man who is inadequate? The process begins to lose some of its mystery. For there are definite signals, definite cues that are sent out and registered by each of the participants in the dance. Remember, with every woman who loves too much, two factors are operating. 1. The lock and key fit of her familiar patterns with his, and 2. The drive to recreate and overcome the painful patterns from the past. Let us take a look at the first hesitant steps of that duet, which informs each partner that here is someone with whom it is going to work, to fit, to feel right. The following stories illustrate clearly the almost subliminal exchange of information that takes place between a woman who loves too much and the man to whom she is attracted, an exchange that instantly sets the stage for the pattern of their relationship, their dance, from then on. Chloe, 23-year-old college student, daughter of a violent father. I grew up in a really crazy family. I know that now, but when I was young I never thought about it except to hope that no one would ever find out about the way my father hit my mother. He hit all of us, and I guess he sort of convinced us kids that we deserved being beaten. But I knew Mom didn't. I always used to wish he'd hit me instead of her. I knew I could take it, but I wasn't so sure that she could. We all wanted her to leave him, but she wouldn't. She got so little love. I always wanted to give her enough love to make her strong so she could get out, but she never did. She died of cancer 5 years ago. I haven't been home or spoken to my father since the funeral. I feel that he killed her, really, not the cancer. My grandmother on my father's side left each of us kids a trust fund, and that's how I was able to go to college, which is where I met Roy. We were in an art class together for a whole semester and never spoke to each other. When the second semester began, several of us were together again in another class, and on the first day we all got into this heavy discussion about relationships between men and women. Well, this guy started talking about American women being totally spoiled, wanting to have everything their own way, and how they just used men. He was dripping with venom as he was saying all this, and I thought, oh, he's really been hurt. Poor thing. I asked him, do you really think that's true? And I started trying to prove to him somehow that women weren't all like that I wasn't like that. Look at how I set myself up. Later on in our relationship, I would not be able to make any demands or take care of myself in any way, or I'd be proving him right in his misogyny. And all my concern that morning in class worked. He was hooked, too. He said, I'll be back. I wasn't going to stick with this class, but I want to talk to you some more. I remember that right then there was this terrific rush, because already I felt I was making a difference to him. In less than 2 months, we were living together. In 4 months, I was paying the rent and almost every other bill, plus buying the groceries. But I kept trying, for 2 more years, to prove to him how nice I was, how I wasn't going to hurt him the way he'd already been hurt. I got hurt quite a bit in the process, at first just emotionally, then physically, too. No one could be as angry as he was at women and not want to push one of them around. Of course, I was sure that was my fault too. It's a miracle I got out. I met a former girlfriend of his and she asked me, right out, does he ever hit you? I said, well, not really. I was protecting him, of course, and I didn't want to look like a total fool, either. But I knew she knew because she'd been there, too. At first I panicked. It was the same feeling I had as a kid, not wanting anyone to see behind the facade. Everything in me wanted to lie, to act like she had a lot of nerve, asking such a question. But she looked at me with so much understanding that it didn't make sense to go on pretending. We talked a long time. She told me about a therapy group she was in where all the women were alike in that they were all drawn to unhealthy relationships, and they were working on learning not to do that to themselves. She gave me her phone number, and after I'd gone through 2 more months of hell, I called her. She got me to go with her to the group, and I think it probably saved my life. Those women were just like me. They had learned to put up with incredible amounts of pain, usually starting in childhood. Anyway, it took me a few more months to leave him, and even with the group's support it was still very hard to do. I had this incredible need to prove to him that he was lovable. I thought that if I could just love him enough he'd change. Thank God I got over that, or I'd be back there again. Chloe's attraction to Roy. When Chloe, the art student, met Roy, the misogynist, it was as though she was meeting the synthesis of her mother and her father. Roy was angry and hated women. To win his love was to win that of her father, who was also angry and destructive. To change him through her love was to change her mother and save her. She saw Roy as a victim of his sick feelings and wanted to love him into becoming well. She also, like every woman who loves too much, wanted to win in her struggle with him and with the important people he symbolized for her, her mother and father. That is what made letting go of this destructive and unfulfilling relationship so difficult. Mary Jane, married for 30 years to a workaholic. We met at a Christmas party. I was there with his younger brother who was my age and really liked me. Anyway, there was Peter. He was smoking a pipe and wearing a tweed jacket with patches on the elbows, and he looked so Ivy League. I was terribly impressed. But there was also an air of melancholy about him, and really that was as attractive to me as his looks. I was sure he'd been deeply hurt at some time, and I wanted to get to know him, to know what had happened, and to understand. I was sure he was unattainable, but I thought if I could be especially compassionate, perhaps I could keep him talking to me. It was funny, because we did talk rather a lot that first evening, but he never quite squared off with me, face to face. He was always at an angle, slightly preoccupied with something else, and I kept trying to win his complete attention. What happened was that every word he spoke to me became vitally important, almost precious, because I was sure he had better things to do. It had been just like that with my father. When I was growing up he was never there, literally. We were quite poor. He and my mother both worked in town and left us kids at home alone. Much of the time, even on weekends he did odd jobs. The only time I saw Dad was when he was home fixing something, the refrigerator or the radio or something. I remember it always felt like he had his back to me, but I didn't mind because it was just so wonderful to have him around. I used to hang around and ask him lots of questions too. Try and get him to pay attention to me. Well, here I was, doing the same thing with Peter, though of course I didn't see it that way then. I remember now how I kept trying to be in his direct line of vision and how he kept sort of puffing away at this pipe, looking off to the side or up at the ceiling, or fiddling with keeping the pipe lit. I thought he was so very mature, with his furrowed brow and faraway look. I was drawn like a magnet. Mary Jane's attraction to Peter. Mary Jane's feelings about her father were not nearly as ambivalent as those of many women who love too much. She loved her father, admired him, and yearned for his company and attention. Peter, being older and preoccupied, instantly replicated for Mary Jane her elusive father, and winning his attention became all the more important. Because, like with her father, his was so difficult to capture. Men who willingly listened to her, who were more emotionally present and more affectionate, failed to arouse in Mary Jane the deep yearning to be loved she had felt. With her father, Peter's preoccupation offered a familiar challenge to Mary Jane, another chance to win the love of a man who avoided her. Peggy, raised by a hypercritical grandmother, and an emotionally unsupportive mother, now a divorced single parent with 2 daughters. I never knew my father. He and my mother separated before I was born, and my mother went to work to support us, while her mother took care of us at home. Now that doesn't sound too bad. But it was. My grandmother was a terribly cruel woman. She didn't beat my sister and me as much as she hurt us with words, every day. She would tell us how bad we were, how much trouble we caused her, how we were good for nothing. That was one of her favorite phrases. The irony was that all of her criticisms just made my sister and me try harder to be good, to be worthwhile. My mother never protected us from her, either. Mother was too afraid grandma would leave, and that she wouldn't be able to go to work because there would be no one to take care of us. So she just looked the other way when grandma abused us. I grew up feeling so alone, so unprotected, and afraid and worthless, all the while trying to make up for being a burden. I remember I used to try to fix things that broke around the house, wanting to save us money and earn my keep somehow. I grew up and married at 18 because I was pregnant. I was miserable from the start. He criticized me all the time, subtly at first, then more savagely. Actually, I knew I wasn't in love with him and married him anyway. I didn't think I had any other choice. It was a 15-year marriage, because it took me that long to believe that being miserable was a good enough reason to get a divorce. I came out of that marriage desperate for someone to love me, but feeling that I was worthless and a failure, and sure that I had nothing to offer a good, kind man. The night I met Baird, it was absolutely the first time I had ever gone out dancing without a date. My girlfriend and I had been shopping. She bought a whole outfit, pants, top, new shoes, and wanted to put them on and go out. So we went to this disco place we'd both heard of. Some businessmen from out of town were buying us drinks and dancing with us, and that was okay, friendly, but not very exciting. Then I saw this fellow over next to the wall. He was very tall, very slim, dressed incredibly well, and very good looking. But he also had an air of coldness about him. I remember telling myself, that is the most elegant, arrogant man I've ever seen. And then, I'll bet I could warm him up. Incidentally, I can still remember the moment when I met my first husband. We were in high school and he was lounging against the wall when he should have been in class, and I said to myself then, he looks pretty wild. I'll bet I could settle him down. See, I was always trying to fix things. Anyway, I went up to Baird and asked him to dance. He was very surprised and I guess a little flattered. We danced a while and then he said he and his friends were leaving to go to another place. Would I like to go? Though I was tempted, I said no. I was there to dance and that was really all I wanted to do. I kept dancing with the businessmen and after a while he asked me to dance again. So we did. It was incredibly crowded in there. People were just packed in. A little later, my girlfriend and I were leaving and he was sitting with some other people at a table in a corner. He beckoned me over and I went. He said to me, "You have my phone number on your person." I didn't know what he was talking about. He reached over and pulled his card out of the pocket of the pullover I was wearing. It was one of those shirts with a pouch pocket in front, and he'd put his card in there when we were coming off the dance floor the second time. I was amazed. I hadn't even known he'd done that. And I was so thrilled to think that this handsome man had taken all that trouble. Anyway, I gave him my card, too. He called me a few days later and we went to lunch. He gave me this terribly disapproving look when I drove up to meet him. My car was kind of old and I immediately felt inadequate. And then relieved that he would have lunch with me anyway. He was very stiff and cold and I took it on myself to put him at ease, as though it was my fault. Somehow, His parents were coming to town to visit him and he didn't get along with them. He recited a long list of grievances against them, which didn't sound all that serious to me, but I tried to listen compassionately. I left that lunch thinking that here was someone with whom I had nothing in common. I had not had a pleasant time. I had felt uncomfortable and sort of off balance. When he called 2 days later and asked me out again, I somehow felt relieved, as though if he had had a good enough time to ask me out again, then everything was all right. We never did have a really good time together. Something was always wrong and I kept trying to make it right. I felt very tense with him and the only good times were when the tension lessened somewhat. That bit of relief from tension passed for happiness, but somehow I was still powerfully attracted to him. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually married this man without ever liking him. He broke off the relationship several times before we married, saying he just couldn't be himself with me. I cannot tell you how devastating that was. I would beg him to tell me what I needed to do to make him more comfortable. He'd just say, "You know what you need to do." But I didn't. I nearly went crazy, trying to figure it out. Anyway, the marriage lasted only 2 months. He left for good after telling me how unhappy I made him, and I've never seen him again, except once in a while on the street. He always pretends he doesn't know me. I don't know how to convey how obsessed I was with him. Each time he left me I felt more drawn to him, not less. And when he came back he would say that he wanted what I had to offer him. There was no rush on earth like that for me. I would hold him in my arms and he would cry and say what a fool he'd been. That kind of scene lasted only one night and then things would start to disintegrate again, with me trying terribly hard to make him happy, so he wouldn't leave again. By the time he walked out of the marriage, I was hardly functioning. I was unable to work, or to do much at all, except sit and rock back and forth and cry. It felt like I was dying. I had to get help in order not to contact him again, because I wanted so badly to make it turn out right, but I knew I couldn't survive another ride on that merry-go-round. Peggy's attraction to Baird. Peggy knew nothing about being loved, and having grown up without a father, knew virtually nothing about men either, certainly not kind, loving men. But she knew a great deal, from her childhood with her grandmother, about being rejected and criticized by someone very unhealthy. She also knew how to try as hard as she could to win love from a mother who could not, for her own reasons, give love or even protection. Her first marriage happened because she allowed herself to be intimate with a young man whom she experienced as critical and condemning of her, and for whom she felt little affection. Sex with him was more a struggle to win his acceptance than an expression of her caring for him. A 15-year marriage to this man left her even more convinced of her inherent unworthiness. So strong was her need to replicate the hostile environment of her childhood and continue her struggle to win love from those who could not give it, that when she met a man who struck her as being cold, aloof, and indifferent, she was instantly attracted to him. Here was another opportunity to change an unloving person into someone who would finally love her. Once they became involved with each other, his infrequent hints that she was making some headway in teaching him to love her enabled her to keep trying in spite of the devastation to her own life. Her need to change him, and her mother and grandmother, whom he represented, was that strong. Eleanor, 65, raised by an overly possessive, divorced mother. My mother couldn't get along with any man. She divorced twice in an era when nobody divorced even once. I had one sister, 10 years older than I, and my mother said to me more than once, "Your sister was your father's girl, so I decided to have one for me." That's exactly what I was to her, a possession and an extension of herself. She didn't believe we were separate people. I missed my father so much after they divorced. She wouldn't let him near me, and he didn't have the will to fight her. Nobody did. I always felt like a captive, and yet responsible for her happiness at the same time. It was very hard for me to leave her, even though I felt like I was suffocating. I went to business college in a distant town, where I stayed with relatives of ours. My mother was so angry she never spoke to them again. After school ended, I was working as a secretary in the police department of a large city. One day this good-looking officer in uniform came in and asked me where the drinking fountain was. I pointed it out to him. Next he asked me if there were any cups. I let him borrow my coffee cup. He needed to take a couple of aspirin. I can still see him throwing his head back to swallow those tablets. Then he said, "Phew, I really tied one on last night." Right then I said to myself, "Oh, how sad. He's drinking too much. Probably because he's lonely." He was just what I wanted, someone to take care of, someone who needed me. I thought, I sure would like to try and make him happy. We married 2 months later and I spent the next 4 years trying. I used to cook these wonderful meals, hoping to lure him home, but he'd go drinking and wouldn't return until it was very late. Then we'd fight and I'd cry. The next time he stayed out late I'd blame myself for getting upset the last time, and tell myself, no wonder he doesn't come home. It got worse and worse until finally I left him. All that was 37 years ago, and just this last year I realized he was an alcoholic. I'd always thought it was all my fault, that I just couldn't make him happy. Eleanor's attraction to her husband. If you've been taught that men are no good by a mother who hates men, and on the other hand you loved your lost father and find men attractive, you're very likely to grow up fearing that the man you love will leave you. You might therefore try to find a man who needs your help and understanding so that you can have the upper hand in the relationship. This is what Eleanor did when she found herself drawn to the handsome policeman. Although this formula is supposed to protect you from getting hurt and getting left by assuring that your man is dependent upon you, the trouble with it is, you must begin with a man who has a problem. In other words, a man who is already on his way to fitting the men are no good category. Eleanor wanted to guarantee that her man would not leave her, as her father had, and as her mother said any man would, and his neediness seemed to provide that guarantee. But the nature of his problem rendered him more likely to leave, not less. Thus, the situation that was supposed to assure Eleanor that she would not be abandoned instead virtually guaranteed that she would. Every night that he did not come home proved her mother had been right about men. And finally she, like her mother, obtained a divorce from a no-good man.